much for joining me. I like to think that you are all here today because you have nowhere better to be, but that you're actually here because you really want to learn how to take wonderful photos on your cell phone. So that's why we're here to chat. I'm sure lockdown has been an amazing opportunity for you guys to learn a few more hobbies and crafts. And even though you may have kids running around, it's probably a lot harder to get things done, but now's the best time to get some photos taken and to learn how to take wonderful photos on your iPhone. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Thank you for the introduction, Marius. Like you said, my name is Kate Rankin. I'm a lifestyle and newborn photographer based in Fourways, Johannesburg. I specialize in all lifestyle photography: maternities, newborns, weddings, kids, families. I also have a studio above my house. I think that's where my husband's taken my kids right now. So if we have some loud banging or popping or anything, that's probably I've made them run away and hide out in my studio. So that's a little bit about me. Not doing a great job at trying to multitask here. So my name is Kate, and what my family thinks I do is pick up my phone and either take selfies for self-promotion or take photos of other people. What my clients think I do is see me behind the camera the whole time, but what I really do is sit at night up until 3 o'clock in the morning editing photos. So there's a lot more that goes into photography than just taking photos, but I love it. It's my absolute passion, and I'm so glad to be here today to chat to you guys about photography and how to take incredible photos on your iPhone. We are here for a reason today, and that reason is, guys, we need to talk, right? Literally every single photo that my husband takes of me or my kids looks like this. And I can't see you, but please raise your hand and let me know that I'm not the only person who's battling with their photos looking like this. Oh my gosh, my whole screen is just filled with people raising their hands. I don't even know how to get it. I wish I could be taking screen grabs of this, right, ladies? And I think it's predominantly a mom issue, but this is what our life is. We sort of always the ones taking the photos, and we're always the ones trying to get everyone in a photo that nobody ever ends up taking a photo of us. And when we do ask a husband to take a photo of the kids, this is what it looks like. And a hands up again if this is what it looks like when somebody takes a photo of you, right? I mean, horrific. Post-weight baby body aside, these are just some of the most shocking photos. You kind of get the idea, right? Yeah. So today, please get your husbands involved or get them to join the next one, because if you're here sitting listening to me tell you or chat to you about how to take great photos, then I think you need to get your husbands involved as well, because let's be honest, most of the time it's one of the spouses who aren't willing to take photos, and we end up taking revolting selfies, or we get photos that look like this. So you've come to the right place. That's the good news. You have joined in on this Zoom iStore chat, and thank you so much for being here. I know it's a Saturday. I know we're in lockdown. We don't really have anywhere to go, but that doesn't mean that you don't have family commitments or cleaning or banana bread making. So I really appreciate you being here, and like I said, you have come to the right place, and it's exciting to have you. I've managed to open up my Q&A over here, so if you do have any questions, please just let me know throughout the webinar. I can't seem to find the chat button for some reason, so I will try and answer questions as we go. So you may be wondering why, as a professional photographer, I'm here to chat to you about taking photos on a cell phone. Well, first of all, it doesn't mean just because I'm a professional photographer that I don't use this little guy all the time for my family snaps. As much as I love my big camera, it's just not convenient to carry it around with me and take it with me to every single little family event. It's not always available. I keep it up in my studio, and let's be honest, not everybody has a professional camera. And if you do, chances are pretty high that you are using it on auto. Again, raise your hand, give me an emoji, tell me if you are one of those people using a camera at home, but you're just using it on auto mode. And to be honest, you can take a better photo on your cell phone using the different settings I'm about to take you through than you can on a camera that's set to auto. Having your cell phone is also quick. It's always charged. Your camera's not guaranteed about being charged. And even if you do know the settings, if you want a quick family photo, or if you want someone to take a photo of you, they're probably going to put it on auto as well. So this is why we're here for me to chat to you and tell you that you can take exquisite, frameable, print-worthy, memorable, shareable photos on your cell phone. So that's the good news. And we all need some good news in lockdown, right? I thought about starting off by putting on a face mask like Cyril, but I thought, no, that was far too much of a giggle. So today I'll just chat to you about taking great photos. This photo is, those moms who've given birth. This is one of the most memorable and emotional photos that you will ever have taken. And this photo was taken by my husband on my professional work camera. And it's blurry and it's out of focus. And the reason I converted it to black and white is to try and salvage it. And again, why I'm talking about a camera and not a phone is if I had given him my iPhone at the time and he had snapped a photo, I can guarantee you that this once-off moment of me meeting my daughter for the first time would have been a better photo on a phone, and then it would have been on auto on my camera. For some reason, my professional work camera, it's the settings change to a very slow shutter speed when it's on auto. So just to keep in mind that, again, if you have a camera and you don't know how to use it, rather whip out your cell phone for precious moments like this. I've got a couple of questions coming through. Candace says she's going to educate her fiance after this. Until we can have another shoot. Yeah, I'm missing all my clients. I did Candace and her fiance Dylan's shoot with all their dogs. It was amazing. But please educate your husbands and your boyfriends and your partners and your fiancés. Moira wants to know, does it matter which iPhone you have? No. And actually, I was going to touch on that just now. The majority of photos you see on this presentation were shot over the space of 10 years. So I only recently upgraded to the iPhone 11 Max Pro. So only a couple of photos on this presentation are shot using the latest iPhone. The majority of them were shot using the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 10. So it doesn't matter what phone you're using. It does matter how you use it and how you edit it. So Celeste wants to know what professional camera. I shoot in a Canon, a 5D Mark III, sorry. Guys, sorry, like I said, the Q&A is coming through. I'll try and get to the Q&As. If I miss out, please do let me know, and you can just pop me a message or a WhatsApp as well. So without further ado, we are here today to talk about the top 10 commandments of iPhone photography. Number 1, set yourself up for success by getting it right in camera. And there's just a couple of rules about how you can do that and how you can make sure that when the perfect photo opportunity presents itself, that you get that perfect shot. The first rule is on your home screen, make sure that you can easily access your camera icon. So I'm going to hold this up. You can see here on mine I'm presenting, but on your home screen, make sure that your camera icon is a shortcut, and then of course your flashlight icon is a shortcut for when load shedding resumes, apparently from May. So have it easily accessible, have the icon camera really accessible, like I said, and have it easy to find. Don't have it in a folder on page 3 of your phone, because guaranteed what's going to happen is your child is going to be doing something absolutely adorable, and what's going to happen is that you are going to have to go into your phone, quickly find your camera, open it up, and by the time you found it, the opportunity has been lost. Another very good tip is, before you take a photo, pick up your phone and just wipe down the back of your lenses. So you can use your t-shirt, you can use a cloth, you can use something lying around. But we tend to pick up our phones and touch our lenses, and especially with the new iPhone, there's 3 lenses to grab you up. So just make sure that you wipe down your screen and you wipe down your lenses just before you take a photo. Make sure your phone is charged. There's nothing worse than having the perfect opportunity to take a photo and then your battery goes dead, or keep a power bank on you. And I also highly suggest getting a cell phone case to prevent lens scratches. If you look at the case, it slightly overrides the lenses, which means that if you put your phone down on a flat surface, you won't be scratching the lenses as much if your phone is out of a case. And also, let's be honest, we don't want to drop our very, very precious iPhones. So now that point number 1 is out the way, subject matter matters. Let me just answer a couple of questions. So long. How do you make the shortcut? It's very easy. Your phone should have the camera icon as the shortcut, but you can also go into the settings. And guys, if you have technical questions, because I am presenting and just trying to toggle between a couple of devices, the awesome Marius and the other iStore guys are on standby to answer some technical questions for you as well. Irma wants to know, how do I take very close-up photos of my new granddaughters, like her little nose, mouth, ears, feet? We're going to be talking about macro and focus points, so don't stress, Irma. We'll touch on that as well. And Megan's saying that she shot Charles Bridge in Prague at sunset on 3% battery. They've shot. Yes, guys, always keep a power bank on you. Trust me, we need them more than ever, especially when you're traveling and your cell phone and you need photos answered on your cell phone. So let's go back to point number 2. Subject matter matters. as to comments here. Weirdly, most kids don't like having their photo taken, right? If you have small children, you will know how impossible it is to get them to actually pose and do things for the camera. I'm raising my hand here because I have 2 of them and I'm stuck in lockdown. I've got no one else's photograph or kids to photograph. I love how everyone's raising their hand again. I can see that perfectly, but I just can't see a bunch of your chats and Q&A. So you may also find if you are married that your husband doesn't like having their photo taken. So you don't want to put too much pressure on your subject when you are taking a photo of them. By making it too much of a thing, you are going to chase them away and you're going to make the moment quite awkward and you're probably going to miss out on an excellent shot. So candid moments really are the best photos, and don't think just because your child is in a weird position or say sitting in a dog kennel or picking their nose doesn't mean that it's not going to make for a really memorable photo. And both these photos, while not the most beautiful or sort of the most elegant, are definitely 2 photos that I remember. I mean, my dog kennel's looking completely tatty over here. My daughter was inside hiding. Here she is picking her nose. I remember this photo particularly well. It was in December and we were at the Vaal Dam for the day and the sun was setting and there was this beautiful grey storm rolling in and the lighting conditions were perfect and her hair was all tousled. And I said, Piper, smile for the camera. And as I did that, she shoved that finger so far up her nose and ruined the shot at the time. But in hindsight, it's one of my favorite photos of her just because of how candid and cute and memorable the whole moment was as well. A couple more questions. Right, Bradley wants to know about using the grid. We're going to touch on the rule of thirds, Bradley. Dominique says, I always get beautiful photos in the afternoon and it has the best camera because, yes, best photos. We're going to talk about golden light, Dominique. Somebody wants to know about motion blur. Will selfies be covered? Yes, anonymous attendee, we will be chatting on selfies. Okay, so the point number 3 is let there be light, like excellent lighting. A photographer's dream is delicious light. And as a natural light photographer, I rely heavily for my professional shoots on using golden hour. And all photographers know the term golden hour. It's pretty much an hour before sunset and an hour after sunrise. It's when the sun is beautifully soft in the sky, it's dappled, it's golden, and it makes for magnificent and exceptional photos. And I see a couple of clients who've popped up here that I've shot in the past, and I know a lot of them have said, why do you have to shoot us at 7 o'clock in the morning and why does it have to be at 5 o'clock in the afternoon? Because I pride myself in getting beautiful golden hour photos. So if you are a past client of mine, sorry, not sorry, but it's absolutely worth it. And if you are booking with a professional photographer, a golden hour shot is when you're going to get the most magnificent light. But we're not talking about professional photography here, we're talking about iPhone photography. And if your daughter is picking their nose or your son is doing a beautiful soccer match or someone in your family is doing something amazing, you cannot wait for them to repeat that just before the sun sets. So I'm going to talk to you about how to use great lighting and take advantage of all lighting conditions regardless of the time of day. Silvino says, what do you consider to be important to taking a portrait photo, lighting, background, on an iPhone? Both. We're going to talk about that now as well. But basically the 10 things I talk about today are all going to come together and explain why you need a whole bunch of different aspects in order to take the best portrait photo. All right. So I snapped these photos yesterday afternoon and I want to talk you through them. They were all taken at the same time. I took them just after 1 p.m., which is the worst time of day to take photos because the sun is coming directly over your head and casting these awful shadows. I took them in my garden just at different spots. And the reason I took them at 1 p.m. is to show that even though I wasn't using golden hour, moving around and taking advantage of different lighting situations can make a huge difference to the end result. So the first one you can see was taken in direct sun. My son is squinting. I didn't ask him to do that, but it actually worked out perfectly for the photo example. It's a very cluttered background. We haven't been able to get to builders in several weeks to do topsoil or any form of garden maintenance. And it's just really not a great photo. At the end of today, you have to realize that a lot of photos you take on your iPhone won't be usable, but a lot will be salvageable. And so don't delete them too hastily because I'm going to chat to you about how to make most of the photos work for you. The second photo, I then asked him to step to the side and lean forward over my lavender bushes, and I took that in dappled shade, and you'll see there's some light coming in on the side of his face, and it's a much better photo. There's a lot less clutter in the background. I used portrait mode, which is available on most of the iPhones, I think from the 6S up, if I'm not mistaken, or at least the 10 up. Sorry, iStore team, you're going to have to just clarify on that. And then the last photo, I took him into the shade, because for iPhone photography, shade is your friend. It removes that really, really harsh glare on your face. And I snapped another photo, and you can already see, I'm sure. Hopefully people are nodding their heads, because I have absolutely no idea what everyone's doing. Maybe you're not even wearing pants. We have no idea at this stage. Hopefully you're nodding in your head and agreeing that the 3 photos get progressively better the more lights and lighting conditions that I've used. Yes, do we all agree? I'm just going to pretend you all think that I'm amazing. Some people asking for information on product photography. I can definitely touch base with you after this and talk about flat lays as well. Irma wants to know about the flash. Irma, I'll be chatting to you on flash as well. And Dominique, when we are editing, how do we blur the background and what is it called? You can use portrait mode to blur the background. It's also something, it depends on the proximity of your subject. Tons of questions coming through, guys. Please keep them coming through. I will try and answer them after this, and maybe afterwards we can have 20 minutes of a Q&A session as well. So what I did with these 3 photos yesterday is straight away I went in and I edited them. And that's why I spoke about editing earlier, because I think going forward, you're probably never going to take a photo on your iPhone without applying some enhancements going forward. So you really can just tweak a photo to make it even better. And I'm just going to talk you through a couple of tweaks that I did. So the first one of my son crunching his eyes in the garden, all I did was I cropped it slightly. I converted it to black and white in the photo app on my phone, and I added a slight vignette. Will I be keeping this photo? Probably, because I'm a photo hoarder. Will I be printing it? Absolutely not. But just to show that you can play around. And for me, black and white saves everything. And I'm going to touch a little bit on black and white as well. For the second photo, I cropped the image because I wanted to bring the focus onto his face. You can see the before and after on the bottom left-hand side. I then added some warmth. I love a warm photo, and warmth is basically adding some more yellow tones, and cooling it down is adding some more blue tones. So just remember, when dealing with people photography, you always want to add warmer tones because it warms the skin tone up. Anything too blue or too cold makes them look a bit dead and sort of just not lifelike. So you always, personally, I always just warm my photos up. And then the third one, I cropped it. Guys, you can probably hear the dogs barking, the kids screaming. That is absolutely the new normal. Hey, the third one, I cropped it. I applied a preset in Lightroom. I'm going to be chatting to you about Lightroom editing. I also increased the warmth again, and I darkened the background just to bring more attention to his face. And to me, even though the first photo of this was lovely, I really prefer this because it's made his face pop even more. And I actually shared this last night on my social pages, and it seemed to have quite a nice reaction. And again, all these photos just taken with an iPhone, no camera involved, but some slight editing and just moving your camera around into different lighting situations can really make a massive difference to your photo. Just going back to the Q&A box. Will sunsets be covered? Not necessarily, but I will talk about taking advantage of sunsets using flash. And how does one take a dappled photo? You don't really. I just moved them into where the sun was coming through the trees, and it became naturally dappled by the light coming in through the trees. Samantha Curley-Young is asking, what app do you suggest for editing? I'm going to be covering all my favorite editing apps coming up in just a bit as well. So this may not be a family photo, and this is a very, very old photo. It was actually taken at my friend Joe's wedding, I think probably 7-8 years ago. But it's really the only example I could find of flash, and I do want to touch on flash photography, and I've seen a few people here asking about flash on an iPhone. Going back to a professional camera, professional cameras have something called a hot shoe where a flash fits in. You also get studio flash photography. You get a lot of flash accessories for professional photographers. The flash on an iPhone is not there to do a lot more than enhance your photos. And I do not suggest using flash at night. I suggest using flash for situations where there's a beautiful sunset behind you, but if I took a photo of somebody with the sunset behind them, the photo would be too dark. So you can see that flash was used on this particular photo of my husband and I, and all it's done is the flash is soft enough to enhance our face, but also keep the beautiful sunset in the background. Flash is also really, really effective for when you are shooting in midday sun with your cell phone and the light is quite harsh and cutting your subject's face in half. A flash can help to diffuse that and remove a lot of that harsh shadow. So play around with flash during the day. Even if there's a little bit of shadow coming in from a tree and you just need to counter that, then play around with the flash on your camera. Georgina wants to know, what does a vignette do? So I feel quite strongly about vignette. I use it, but a vignette is basically when you edit a photo and you create a vignette which darkens the outside and it creates a circular dark ring around your cameras. A slight can't speak. Apparently lockdown has broken all the English. A slight vignette is there to just darken the background of your photo to make the subject pop. But be careful of making it look too 1995, where you completely bring the vignette in and it just looks artificial and fake. You can also have it go the other way around, which is when you get the white around the photo, and that was very popular in baby photos about 40 years ago. We don't want to do that again. All right. Okay, so Sarah says, great tips. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. If we haven't used portrait mode, please show us how to blur the background afterwards. Sarah, yes, there are a couple of apps that you can use to do it. Unfortunately, unless you're using professional software or a certain lens, it's not overly possible, but I will touch on blurring out the background for you as well. If I forget, please just let me know. Okay, so we're going to talk about angles. I failed maths horribly in school. Hopefully other people feel the same, and that's why I'm a photographer. Although, ironically, you still need a sort of mathematical brain to take here. A few people raising their hands, not great at maths. So angles in photography are fortunately a lot more exciting than angles in school, and I'm just really so glad that I never have to go back there. Although I am terrified that lockdown carries on so long that I have to teach my own children mathematics, because I feel like I will then have an actual nervous breakdown. So let's talk about angles in photography. Angles tell a story, and when I present this when I present this workshop live, I normally get on the floor and I show different examples. I'm not going to do that. I am wearing pants, but I don't want you to see how messy my house is, because I have 3 dogs and 2 kids, and it's just looking like a bomb has hit it. But we as human beings tend to speak eye to eye and face to face. So all we really know is this, but we forget that there's a world of 360-degree opportunities around us, and just moving our angle and changing our perspective can make for a much, much nicer photo. So I've just taken a couple of photos here to show an example of how different angles can evoke different emotions. And always just keep in mind that depending on the angle you took a photo from, can also change how you feel about the subject involuntarily. If you ever look at a movie and you see the camera zooming in over the subject, that subject is often portrayed as being weak or a child or innocent or overwhelmed or scared. And the opposite is true. If you shoot up into a subject, you show them as being big and imposing and scary. So watch out for that next time you watch a TV show. My husband says I've ruined movies for him forever because I studied film, and all I do is look at angles and light and composition and all of that. So different angles can evoke different emotions. I mean, this was my son. I think this was day 3 of lockdown, and I was doing my exercises and he climbed on my legs. But I really love the way me shooting from a very low angle up shows sort of the freedom and the movement and like he's flying. And it also makes my legs look slightly thinner, which is always very exciting when you are in that photo. Of yourself. The donkey photo, I just really liked the close-up. The angle that I got in maximized his very comical nose, and it made his body smaller, and it was just a much cuter and more comical angle than, say, just shooting a donkey would have been. And I know donkeys have got nothing to do with family photography, but we are touching on pets, so this donkey is someone's. Kylie is saying she's got the new iPhone, her flash doesn't always work. Yes, Kylie, I think you probably got it on night mode, and you do need to then actively remove it off night mode and put it onto a flash, so you can play around with that. All the iStore guys can answer that as well. And then this last photo is a complete sort of bird's eye view. I painted some chalk on the garage floor with my kids the other day, and I snapped this photo on my phone and I edited it in Lightroom, and it's a lot more whimsical and fun. It gets the whole picture in and it tells an absolute story. So remember that angles are very important in terms of telling a story with your photographs. Karen wants to know, was the donkey image done on portrait mode? No, it wasn't, but I edited it to sort of add some texture and some clarity. But no, that was just a normal photo. I think if it was, you probably would have missed out on a lot of the ears and the donkey in the background, because the portrait mode does blur out quite a lot. This photo, my son was playing in a cardboard box, because those people who have children know that you can buy them the Lego and they play with the box, or the vacuum cleaner box, or whatever comes in the box they don't play with. So this was a big box from a treadmill that he was playing with, and I got down on the floor and I shot him eye to eye. So I got completely on his level, and I think it's a lot more effective than, say, if I had just taken a photo sort of like bending over. And I think this is why I have a sore back all the time. The footstep photo, I got down really, really low with my camera, and I focused in on the footstep on the beach, and it created this lovely sort of depth of field and perspective. So remember to just move around a lot, just to get different angles and different perspectives, and to play around with different angles and perspectives. I'm sorry, I've seemed to have done something to my slideshow. Hopefully you guys don't see that. A couple more options. I shot this directly looking down on my daughter. It makes her seem small and innocent. And I love the rule of thirds, which I'm going to touch on just now as well. And I also love the lighting coming in. So there's a whole bunch of different elements in this photo that I particularly love. And the second one, pardon for being a bit blurred, it was a WhatsApp photo sent from my husband's iPhone 11, but it shows height, because I shot my son in one of these bungee cords, and I leaned down and I shot shooting up, and it just creates a lovely perspective, and it makes him look small and innocent and vulnerable floating high there in the sky. Fudali or Fudal, apologies for massacring your name, wants to know, what's the best way to hold the phone when taking photos, horizontal or vertical? It absolutely depends on what photo you're taking. It's completely dependent on what you want to achieve. If it's a landscape, I always say horizontal. If it's a portrait, vertical, but play around. If your background is messy, you want to try and minimize it as much as possible. So I would then suggest shooting on portrait mode. Right. And then just the last one is, sometimes a small change of perspective makes a really big impact. So this is my very dirty pool when I was heavily pregnant with one or other of my children. I cannot remember. But again, you can very clearly see that I have a preggy belly here, but instead of taking it from the traditional side, I took it from the top, and it makes my feet look petite and tiny, even though I had cankles the size of small balloons. And it's just a different, interesting perspective on how to take different angles of photography. Sarah wants to know, how did you get the garage floor photo without your feet in it? Sarah, I actually sort of stood over, and I try and tuck my feet far back, and I leaned over my subject. But also on the new iPhone, you can put it on the 0.5 or the 2. I must check on the settings where you can, it's like a, I've just lost the word, you can sort of super zoom it out. And then also, of course, I cropped the photo to crop my feet out as well. Right, rule number 5, composition, and that's all about framing that shot. And it's very important that you get this right in camera, because there's only so much you can do in post-production. This is a very important slide. It's very boring, and it's not pretty, but there are technically 9 rules to photography, and you guys feel free to take some screen grabs or jot these down or ask it for me afterwards. But the 9 rules, and I say this in inverted commas because I believe in breaking the rules, is that you should fill the frame, focus on shapes and lines, use symmetry and patterns, understand the rule of thirds, know your focus, create depth, use frames to frame your shot, watch your background, and then lastly, break the rules. There's some rules where it says you should never crop a subject's ear off or hair off or something off, and I completely disagree. So whilst these rules are important in terms of understanding how to take a better photo, don't sit and make sure you've ticked off every single one of them before you take that photo. A, you'll miss out on the great shots, and B, you don't have to be so sort of rigid and structured in taking photos. Like I said earlier, sometimes the most candid photos make for the best photos as well. Shannon says, hi Kate, do you take your photos on original and add filters after, or do you ever take with Vivid, etc.? Shannon, I always take an original. I believe in starting off with the most neutral option, and then I prefer to edit it afterwards, as opposed to letting the camera app or the camera itself tell me what I want. So I take on original always. So we've spoken about the 9 sort of different rules of photography, and here I'm just going to touch on a couple. So you can see this first one here. It's again not a family photo, but it takes a really nice look at the rules of thirds, the rule of thirds and symmetry. There's beautiful palm trees reflecting in the water. You can see that the photo is broken up into sort of 3 lines. If you had to place imaginary lines across the photo, you can see there's the water, there's the mountain, and then there's the sky area. And then the palm trees coming down also create imaginary rule of third lines. So when you look at a photo and you don't understand why you like it, often you'll realize it's because of the things I'm about to talk about that make a photo so striking and so nice. Georgina says, please make the session more practical by showing us how to use your tips via iPhone. Georgina, unfortunately, I'm presenting off my iPhone, so I can't really pick it up because my slide is on my iPhone itself. So hopefully the presentation and the notes will just have to do for now. The second photo here is all about pattern, symmetry, and perspective. It was raining a couple of weeks ago, and I just loved the way that I'd taken my fig leaf out for some watering, and I just loved the way that the water had fallen on the leaf. And I zoomed in really close. I zoomed with my feet, not with my zoom on my camera. And we're going to talk about that just now as well. I leaned in really close to the leaf, snapped the shot, and you can see the water droplets. You can see the lovely leading lines leading out, and I cropped it. So even though the whole leaf isn't in the photo, you can still see it's a leaf. And that's what I mean about breaking the rules. You don't always have to have everything in the photo in order for it to tell a story, which leads me to my third photo. My son playing in that same box. You can see his little knobbly, almost 5-year-old knees popping out. And even though you can't see his face or his body, you know exactly what's going on. And again, it's just to show that you don't have to completely show the whole photo to tell a story. And here I've used an example of cropping the photo and filling the frame as well. Know your focus. This was my daughter when she was a bit smaller. She was fast asleep, and I zoomed in and I just caught her lashes. I've cropped the top of her head and I've cropped the bottom of her mouth, but it's still very much obviously a photo of my daughter. So focus on what you want to focus on. I converted it to black and white, which made it a lot more striking in my opinion. And it just it's a lovely little memory of her beautiful little lashes that I was never blessed with. The next photo is one of my favorite photos, just snapped of my dad with my daughter having a little chat. And over here it shows shapes and lines and symmetry. And again, the rule of thirds. Again, if you look at the photo and you imagine invisible lines, 3 going up and 3 going across, you can see how those rule of thirds come into play. Melissa says, do you take close-ups using macro or zooming in? Melissa, I actually just held the camera, the phone over the leaf, and then that yellow square popped up. I moved the square to one of the water droplets, and I had a steady hand, and I took the photo. So I didn't use any specific macro or zoom. I just zoomed in with my physical cell phone and snapped that pic. I love using negative space in photos. I believe that less is more, and it really tells a huge story. This photo was well worth the freezing cold conditions. We were away in Delstrom over winter, and I woke up and I saw this beautiful mist outside, and I jumped outside and I took this photo, and I converted it to black and white, which I think tells more of a story and it makes it a bit more eerie. But you can see the rule of thirds here, so you can see the ground, you can sort of see the tree and the lighter mist, and then the full mist on top as well. And the rule of thirds with the tree tucked to the side. So this tree, even though it's a very simple photo, to me it's a lot more striking just there being one tree in this beautiful negative space than let's say I'd taken a photo of an entire forest as an example. Anonymous wants to know, hi, once you edit, do you keep the original? Yes, I do, because I'm a hoarder of photos. My lockdown resolution has to sort out the last 5 years of photographs on my phone, and I've realized just how much I hoard. I also set them because I'm going to talk about how editing compresses a file size. So I keep them in case I want to try and edit them a bit more at a later stage and I have the original photo. Yes, Anonymous says better to crop down to the zoom than to zoom and snap, 100%. I'm going to talk to you about why zooming on your phone isn't as good as walking towards your subject, but I will get there very shortly. Here's another one of leading lines. My son was playing in the tree. I converted it to black and white. I cropped the photo to make him the focal point. And I love how the tree frames his face. And it's just a lovely shot to me because there's very little background distraction. And it's just him playing in the tree. The original photo was the whole tree was quite cluttered. And I also removed the color and turned it to black and white because to me, again, it's just my favorite way of editing photos. And the last one is leading lines. This was my daughter. We were playing some lockdown games. I had to bribe her with about 45 marshmallows to get this photo taken. But the leading lines of the garage door lead into her eyes and lead into the shot. And it's a little bit of a close-up of her eye as well. And one of my favorite photos I've taken of her on my cell phone, just with some light editing in Lightroom, which I will touch on as well. This uses the rule of thirds and depth of field. So depth of field means you get a blurry background, but you can also do it the opposite where the foreground is blurry and then you shoot something clear behind as well. So you'll see here I stood behind a tree and I shot this house. I just love the reflection on the water. A lot of my clients will often say to me at a family photo shoot, why are you standing in the bushes? There's grass in front of your lens. And it's completely intentional, because I love to get these soft, blurry depth of field lines, as you can see here. It frames the shot beautifully. This was my son picking berries. I went around the hedge and I shot through, and you can see that the leaves have blurred sort of the border out and created a lovely frame and focused on his face. So you can use depth of field both in the foreground and in the background as well. Another use of negative space, my little punk daughter riding her motorbike at the skate park. I converted it to black and white. The angle I shot was a little bit higher to show her innocence, and I kept the negative space in just to show sort of the scale of the situation, and the rule of thirds as well. You can see that she's in the bottom left. So I've placed her to show her littleness in this big sort of cruel world of graffiti and skate parks. Couple more questions, a ton of questions coming through. I really apologize if I miss yours. Awesome compositions. Thank you, Taylor. Nikki, do you click on the yellow block to create depth? No, depth is, well, as an example, Nikki, when I was shooting that house, yes, I would then make sure the yellow block was focused on the house and not on the branches. It would have been quite pretty if the leaves had been in focus and the house had been blurred, but yes, the yellow block is then going to dictate where your focus is. Charmaine says, how does one take a great pano photo? Difficult to have it in the exact line moving from left to right. Charmaine, I am with you. My pano photos look like the horizon is the Rocky Mountains. I really also battle. You have to be very calm and very careful. And if you ever master it, let me know. One day I'm going to try attempt a good pano photo. All right, rule number 6 of our 6 rules of iPhone photography is that imperfection can be kind of perfect. And I keep saying this to my clients when they book a shoot with me. They say, oh, I've got a gap between my teeth, or I've got freckles, or I've got a double chin. And I have never met anybody that I photographed that I haven't found beautiful. You may have people in your life and you think, oh, I wish I had her eyes, I wish I had her arms, I wish I had her smile. The imperfections about us are what makes us absolutely striking. And the same can be applied to your photographs as well. So when you go out and about on a photo walk, or when you look at your kids doing something, try and embrace those imperfections. My children have not worn pants the entire lockdown. In fact, I'm worried they're going to go back to school naked. And because they're not wearing any clothes, they are constantly filthy. Their hair is in their face. Nikita's railing her hand. They constantly have hair in their face because they need a haircut. And I'm just embracing it now. I'm embracing my kids' eyes poking through this messy hair, and I'm embracing the mud smudges on their face. And if you look for it, you can find beauty in everything. This is a photo that should have been deleted as I took it. I was very early postpartum here, so I've got thunder thighs of note. I popped my phone on the hood of a game vehicle. We were at my parents' farm in Mabulingwe, and I tried to snap a family portrait of my husband and our kids and my sister and brother-in-law, and it's awful. I mean, you can see the sort of lid of the bonnet of the car. The sun was coming in behind us. It was a lovely golden hour. If I was using a professional camera, I could have changed my settings, but my iPhone picked up the subject, and it just created this really horrible looking silhouette. I'm so glad I didn't delete it, because for the sake of this workshop, I decided to bring it out and just show you that you can actually salvage a lot of photos. So my first rule is that black and white forgives all sins. So the first thing I did was I converted it to black and white, and I increased the exposure. If you zoom in closely, you'll see it's very grainy. Guys, a lot of professional photographers intentionally add grain to their photos. So don't be scared if your photo is shot in low light. Don't be scared if it's grainy. Don't be scared if it looks low resolution, because some people will actually pay money for that. I then tilted it and cropped it. So I made sure to crop out the car. And at the end of the day, it's actually quite a cute pic. You can see our faces. You can see these lovely leading lines of shadows. And I love the grain, and I love the sort of the granularity of it all. And so this photo is salvageable. And what I'm saying is, go back and maybe find 10 photos that you've taken where the setup or the situation or the environment or the memory was quite strong, and see if you can fix them using a couple of the rules and the ideas that I've given you today. Georgina says, excuse my ignorance, what is the yellow block? Georgina, when you open up your phone app, you'll see a yellow block, and that's your focus, and you can move it around on your screen. And if I want to focus on a tree, I put the yellow block there, and it becomes my focus point. Andrea's asking about editing. I'm going to get to editing shortly. Rachel, do you ever shoot in black and white or only convert afterwards? I always shoot just in original mode, Rachel, and I convert and edit only post the photo has been taken. So I like to shoot just a normal photo, and then I play around with my edit. So only time I change it up is obviously if I'm shooting in normal photo mode, or if I'm changing it to portrait mode. But I don't shoot with different settings, filters applied. Right. This is another example of how imperfection can be perfect. My daughter, I picked her up from school, when they still went to school. When are they going back? Seriously. People are homeschooling. Are you surviving? Do you have enough wine? Can I send you anything? Because all the hands being raised. Sunil, one of my clients, she's got twins and a toddler boy. Well, guys, hats off to you if you're homeschooling. At least all I have to do is throw arts and crafts at the problem at the moment. So yeah, I fetched my daughter from school. We were taking them to swimming lessons, and I wanted to show actually a framing shot. So I turned around and I snapped her through the headrest. And as I did that, because she's naughty and cheeky, she shoved her feet in my camera. And again, probably a photo that I should have deleted, but I ended up keeping and editing. And I really love how you get these 2-year-old grubby toes in the photo, but her beautiful eyes are in focus. And I cropped it and I vignetted it and I turned it to black and white. And it's actually just a really cute photo. Created completely by accident. So again, don't delete too hastily. See what you can do and create to edit the photos. Right. Know thy phone. It's very important to know what you have in your hand. I'm assuming most of you are iPhone users. You don't have to have the top of the range iPhone. I only recently got the new iPhone 11, which is amazing. But before that, I was using a 3-year-old iPhone, and the photos you see on this presentation were taken with that iPhone. But it's still important to know what's in your hand, because if you don't understand the features and the settings and what you can and can't do, then you're not going to be able to maximize taking beautiful photos. And also know thy neighbor, because if they have spare wine during lockdown, it's very important. Before today's presentation, that little line underneath said, know thy neighbor in case they have torches during load shedding. Oh, how times have changed, hey? All right, so this is what most of your phones will look like, and there's just a whole bunch of different options and settings on your phone. There's the grid mode, which you can activate, which gives fine lines. It gives the rule of thirds on your phone. And I know somebody earlier had a question where they said they'd like to learn how to use the grid mode. If you can visualize the rule of thirds, it's basically if you hold your grid mode up, you'll see the 3 lines going horizontally and the 3 lines going vertically. And it really helps to position your subject matter using the rule of thirds. I keep it on just out of habit, but the more you shoot, the more you understand about the rule of thirds. HDR is a mode where your phone automatically takes 3 photos together and then merges them together to create the best possible outcome. You can edit live photo. There's a live mode, so if you've often snapped a photo and haven't realized it's been on live mode, you play it back and you sort of see your characters move for half a second before smiling. You can then save out a photo from live mode, which gives you a bit more leeway, especially when photographing very small, fast-moving humans. Somebody I saw earlier asked about the 0.5, the 1 and the 2. So it's different. It's on the new iPhone 11. It's just this different sort of in-camera settings. So it's very, it picks it up for you. So I need to open my phone again because I can't remember, but one of them is when it takes it normally. One is when it opens it up, so it gives you a wide angle. That's the word I'm looking for. So play around with those settings. That photo of my son on the bungee cord I took with the wide angle just to show more space and more height and more depth. If you pick up your phone and you put it on a selfie mode, and you raise your arm far away, it automatically sets to a wide angle as well, which allows you to film more people in the selfie mode. You can get a couple more options, like there's video mode, obviously, which is stock standard. There's photo mode, there's square mode, and there's pano mode, which is the panorama to create a long sort of a long photo. Sue, HDR, she wants to know what HDR is. That's when you put it on the HDR setting, it takes 3 photos simultaneously, and it then merges those 3 photos together and gives you the best possible outcome. So it basically does some in-photo editing for you. Kavina wants to know how you add exposure. You can do it in your in the camera. There's a couple of sliders that you can play around with, or once you've taken the photo on several editing apps, or even just on the Photos app on your iPhone, you can add the exposure manually on a little slider. Liesel says, oh my God, I need to go find videos on knowing my phone. Goodness. Yeah, there's a lot that you can do. And I'm really just skimming the surface here. It's really just an introduction and it's basics. But your phone is capable of a hell of a lot. So go out and play and have fun. I mean, what else are you guys going to do anyway? Right. Point number 8. Selfies must fall. Moms, who's with me? We want nice photos of ourselves, not where our arms are showing and everything looks completely out of sync. These photos are fine, okay? These selfies are absolutely allowed. I always do a selfie when I give a workshop, and I'm so sad that I can't see your faces today and I can't get a selfie of everyone who's participating. And there's several hundred of you, which is wonderful, but I can't see your face. Testing out a new lipstick for my Instagram, sipping a G&T, sending updates to my personal trainer at gym. Those selfies are fine because there's no one else around me and they weren't overly important photos. But guys, these selfies are not. And I would pay money to meet a mom or a parent out there who has not desperately wanted a photo of them and their kids, and this is what they've ended up with. Revolting. These selfies need to fall. I wish you could all see my screen. It's completely lighting up with people just raising their hands. Probably looks like a small Mexican wave going on out there. I've now realized that the only way to be in a photo is to ask somebody to take it for me. So if you know how your camera or your camera on your phone works, you are also in a better position to give somebody your phone and say, please take a photo of me and my children. Please take a photo of me doing this. And you just give it to them, because otherwise you're never, ever going to be in a photo again. And my biggest worry is if we never get out of selfies, then one day when we go missing and they put our face on a milk carton or on a missing poster, that this is literally all people are going to see of us. So guys, get in the photo, learn how to take wonderful cell phone photos, bring your husband for a course, tell them it's a beer tasting or something, and make sure that you get in those photos. Shannon says she didn't even know her phone had the grid option. Yep. You can just play around with your camera. You can either have the grid option on or off. Oh, so many questions. I keep forgetting to scroll down. Lindy, I have one more option which looks like a half moon with lines through it. So Lindy, it sounds like you've got the latest iPhone 11. Is that correct? That means that it's on low light mode. And basically what it does, it will take a photo in low light mode very slowly, almost like a slow shutter speed. And it will take a photo in low light that looks actually really nicely exposed. So that's with your flash off, and you'll see it says hold still for about 3 seconds, and it takes a really nice low light photo. Nikita, I have a tripod now. I'm tired of my husband's crappy photos. Georgina, why would you use the square option on the phone when taking a photo? We are going to talk about that, Georgina. I feel very strongly about square photos, so we're going to get to that now. Right. Second last rule of taking good photos is to keep it simple. Susan, don't panic, don't overthink. Just go out and have fun with your phone. If your house looks anything like mine, and when I was setting this up this morning, I wanted to go up to my studio, but there's very low internet there. But I have kids' toys, I have dog's hair, I have dirty dishes. I mean, I think everyone's house during lockdown particularly looks even worse. So a couple of rules for keeping it simple is to find a space in your home where the clutter is less. So find a wall that's neat and clean with a nice color. I've got my blue front door, which I absolutely love taking photos against. Clean linen, neat floors. Obviously, don't go take a photo where there's dog poo on the lawn. Find somewhere where the lawn's looking a bit greener. So find spaces in your home that are more suited for photos. I also love a clean white background. It makes photos pop so beautifully, especially if you add a splash of color. So if your kids are in the bubble bath or in a bath with bubbles, the white of the bubbles, the sort of white of the walls, it makes for very striking photos. Throw in a rubber duck or a yellow rubber duck or a toy, and it just makes that photo pop. So like I say, identify a couple of places in your home and start training your kids to stand against there when they're doing something cute. Also remember to take advantage of rooms with lovely light coming through, not direct light, because then it'll again create that glare. But if you've got big open windows, always photograph with the light coming onto you. Clutter-free makes for the best photos. This is one of the favorite photos I've ever taken of my daughter. I was building my studio upstairs and nothing had been moved in. The floor was all just concrete and screeding, and I was in just doing a little walk around just to check some stuff for the builders, and my daughter popped her head through and I picked up my phone and I snapped this photo. And this is one of my favorite photos because it's just her in this beautiful clean white space with no distractions and no clutter. I mean, if you went up to my studio now, there's props and buckets and baskets and newborn accessories, and it just wouldn't have the same effect. Ryan wants to know, do I ever film in 4K video mode and then take a screenshot from the video to get a better quality photo, or does that make a little difference? Ryan, I actually can't answer that because I don't do much filming. I film sort of videos of my kids running around having fun, but I need to join a couple of the iStore workshops on video. So I can't answer that, but maybe one of the iStore pros can answer in the background. Sandy, any tips for taking photos of foods and drinks? I'm a huge fan of flat lay. And styling, food styling as well. So flat lay is when you take something from above and you line things up with accessories and a couple of sprigs of mint and some accessories, and then you crop it so it looks like it's filling the space. This is another photo that I love because it's clean and it's different, and I love the angles. Her compactum probably had a poo nappy on and messy clothes, and I asked my husband to lift her up in front of the mirror, and basically I just took a photo from behind him, so I was out of shot and I couldn't see the cupboard doors open, I couldn't see the mess in the room, and it's a lot more of an effective photo than, say, a photo with clothes hanging out of a cupboard and a messy nappy would have been on her compactum. And then lastly, I've had a bunch of people ask me about editing. I see Lorraine just asked me about, do I use a mobile version of Lightroom? We're going to touch on editing now. Because, like I said at the beginning, it's probably very, I can almost guarantee that you're going to start taking photos now and editing them before sharing them. Because once you realize the power of editing, and editing a beautiful photo off your iPhone, you're probably never going to go back, especially if you want to keep your brand aligned with the same filters and presets, etc. So yeah, this is a very boring photo of a tree. Not exciting. I was away in the Kruger Park shooting the lodge, which was a wonderful work trip. And as we were driving back, the sun was setting and I loved the clouds in the sky, and I snapped this photo. And all I did was convert it to black and white. I added some grain and I added some texture, and it's just really made for a lot more striking photo with the silhouette of the tree. So I normally do this in person, which is a lot more effective, but when you take a photo, you need to think of it as a piece of paper. So if you take your photo, it is sized at a certain resolution and it's got a certain amount of pixels in it. The more you edit, the smaller you compress your photo. So if you keep editing and keep editing and keep editing, basically what's going to happen is you're going to compress the pixels and the resolution of that photo, and it therefore might become more and more grainy. So before we get onto the editing tips and my favorite editing apps, just if you are going to play around with editing on your phone and editing on with some phone apps, try and create a duplicate copy of the original photo so you have the original size, and then you can play around with the different apps and not stress too much about losing pixels, especially if you do want to send your photos for printing or make photo books, etc. And another option is certain apps have the option to export their photos as a high resolution. So if you are using apps, I know Pro Camera 8 and PureShot, they give you control over the compression of the JPEG. So always just make sure that when exporting an edited photo, you save it at the highest resolution, should you want to use it for printing purposes. There are so many photo editing apps on the market. It's very overwhelming. If you go into the app store, there's a lot to choose from. So these are just some of the apps that I personally love. It doesn't mean they're the best. It doesn't mean that I endorse them. It just means that these are the ones I prefer using, and they all have different options as well. So Snapseed is your all-purpose photo editing app. It was one of the first guys to come out, and it's still excellent. VSCO or VSCO, you can create beautiful film-like edits. Instagram is an editing app in itself, and they really have improved their editing presets. They used to be really kitsch with the frame and the strong vignettes, but now you can create some really nice edits within Instagram. And my personal favorite is Lightroom. I use Lightroom on a professional basis for my professional photos, and I use the Lightroom app on my phone. And if I could give one suggestion as to editing app, I would definitely suggest Lightroom for you. And then the last one is Layout by Instagram. Layout does collages, and whilst I don't love collages, they do have their time and their place, and I'll touch on that shortly. Just going back to some questions. Tam wants to know, hi Kate, how do we add grain or texture? You can do that in Lightroom, and you can do that on the Photos app as well. Go in, download the Lightroom for mobile. It looks intimidating, but you can get some beautiful photos. You can add grain, texture, clarity, vignette, exposure. You can create a preset. So if anyone looks at my personal Instagram feed, they'll see that my photos all have a very similar look and feel. And whilst I don't believe in presets that turn your avocado bright purple, I do believe in having a really nice consistent layout to my Instagram. So Lightroom for mobile, Tam, will do that for you. There's just different settings there where you can enhance grain. Gina Phillips, do you find that the free versions of the apps are sufficient, or do you need to buy the full versions? I pay for Lightroom on my desktop for my photography, and I have Lightroom on my phone, and I actually forgot to find out if I get it for free because I pay for it professionally, or if it is a free app. I have a feeling it's a free app, and it's not like one of those annoying apps where there's in-app purchases. So Lightroom, guys, check it out. Check out the other ones. Instagram doesn't charge you. Lightroom, I don't think, charges you. Snapseed, I know, is free. So try out the free ones first, and then see how you feel about them going forward. What I'm going to do in the next couple of slides is just take you through photos that I took, and then how I edited them and what I edited them in. So SOOC is a photographer term. It means straight out of camera. So the photo on the left is the straight out of camera photo, and then the photo on the right is how I edited it. So this is straight out of camera. It's my daughter. I then opened it up in Lightroom. You can see I cropped it a little bit to crop out most of the nappy. I converted it to black and white, and then I applied quite a high contrast because I loved her face peeking through the lines of the chair. And then you'll see the background also just got darkened out a little bit because I didn't want to see my doors in there. Very boring family photo, but we are talking family photography here. And sometimes this is the best you're going to get. And this is the best family photo I've had taken of me this year. But whilst it was nice, there's still a little bit of work you can do on the photo that's been taken just to make it a bit more striking. So straight out of camera, this was my daughter's birthday party. She looked very unimpressed. There's nothing you can do about a cross toddler. Even you can edit it to the heels and back. Your toddler will still look cross. But what I did is I edited this in Lightroom. I then cropped it just to remove a little bit more distracting elements. And I enhanced it slightly as well. So you can see I've added some exposure. And I think over here I added a saved preset as well. This was my daughter. I took it at a little bit of a high angle. It was in full shade. Very cute photo, but a bit dull. One of my favorite things about my daughter is her eyes, and I wanted to bring that out. So I edited it in Lightroom. I put on quite a high contrast black and white filter, and I upped the exposure and added some more clarity just to make her eyes really pop out. Janet wants to know, how do you straighten a lopsided photo? Janet, you can do that once you open the photo in the Photos app. If you click on it, a box pops up and you see almost a wheel underneath, and you just scroll your wheel left and right, and you're basically going to either rotate the photo or you're just going to straighten it up. So the Photos app on your phone is great for sort of very basic edits and just to fix a photo. If you want to apply more presets, then you can use an app as well. Noble wants to know, is using a tint good? I always use a tint. I warm up my photos, like I said at the beginning. I add in more of a yellow hue, just slightly. You don't want to make people look like they've just touched the sun. But yes, I always warm up my photos a little bit. All right. This is my puppy when he was a dog. And like I said, this is my dog when he was a puppy. I don't love collages, but they do have their time and their place. And he was pulling so many funny photos that what I did was I shot individual photos of his face on my lap and then popped them onto the Layout app in a 4-square collage, and I edited them in Lightroom. And if you look closely, you'll see that I've added a lot more clarity and texture to his fur, which makes him look almost illustrated and drawn on, and it just brings out the character of his coloring as well. And speaking of collages, I find them very old-fashioned. It's very busy. It's distracting. Rather choose the best photo and post that, or choose 3 and post them one after each other. But there are really nice times that a collage comes in handy. And for me, it's if you want to do time-lapse memories. This is the first 9 months of my son. Every month when he turned a month older, I snapped a photo, and it's quite a nice way to see his growth. Comparison photos, so side by side, you can use them for weight loss, or these are my 2 kids next to each other, or just to completely make a mockery of your husband and your kids' parents. So that's a couple of ideas when to use a collage, but I enjoy the minimalist look. I enjoy a cleaner photo. So if you can stay away from a collage in terms of creating good photos and taking beautiful images, then I would. Lastly, just a couple more tips and tricks about taking great photos on your iPhone. Oopsie, goodness, sorry. Size for the photo you want. Somebody earlier asked about why would I take a photo in a square if I can square it afterwards? If you are taking a photo for Instagram only, my suggestion is to open up the Photos app on the camera on your phone and set it to square. The reason is if you have to then resize it for Instagram, which you can, you may lose either your composition. So you may find you lose some negative space. You may crop off something you don't want to crop off. So if it really is for Instagram specific, take it in the square mode, because then you know it's going to fit beautifully and it's being composed and set up for Instagram. Remember the rule of thirds. Even this photo here, you can see she's to the side and there's some lovely negative space in the duvet. So just keep that in mind when taking photos about the placement of your subject. Zoom with your feet. This is a very big one. When you zoom on your camera, you can either pinch it or you push the zoom button, you lose clarity. My mom is a culprit. I don't know if she's watching this today, but she'll sit and she'll zoom in from standing far away. If you have the ability to, and I do this with my professional work as well, I only shoot on prime lenses and I zoom with my feet. So I would rather walk closer to my subject and take a photo than zoom in. And the reason why this is better on a phone is because you keep your clarity and you keep your resolution. It gets grainier the more you zoom in and in. So if you can get closer to your subject, rather zoom with your feet. Use your different camera options. You can set your camera, the button on the side of your phone, to take a photo. So if you are trying to take a group shot and there's 9 of you and you don't want to get your arm in the middle of the photo, then activate that side camera button, which takes a photo. Edit for your brand. I spoke about that earlier. Find a look and a feel that works for you and stick to it, because I've had people approach me and say they know it's my photo because of the look and feel of the photo. So even if it's your own personal Instagram feed and it's just your family and kids photos, edit for your brand and keep that same consistent look and feel going. Shoot, delete, repeat. Having been in lockdown and having spent a good 4 or 5 weeks downloading photos of iCloud and deleting and saving and trying to do photo books, I've realized I have way too many photos that I haven't deleted. So make sure that after a bit of a photo shoot session, you go through, delete the ones that are blurry, out of focus, have too much movement, keep the ones that are salvageable and go from there. Share your memories. If lockdown has taught me anything, it's that I have beautiful photos on hard drives, on iCloud, on my computer, on my phone. So try and just be diligent about keeping your photos organized and accessible. Print them, frame them, because what's the point in taking and learning how to take beautiful photos if you're not going to save them? Focus your camera manually using that square dot and keep your lens clean. It's very, very, very important. I've often offered to take a photo for someone, and I picked up their phone, and you can see immediately it looks like somebody smeared Vaseline on the lens. So make sure to keep your lens clean at all times. And then lastly, have fun. That's it. Enjoy taking the photos. Enjoy these precious memories with your kids. It really is the most fun time, and it's such an enjoyable thing to see this moment come to life and these memories captured forever. And go out there, pick up your phone. Don't be scared to play around and use the different settings. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know as well. And if you like that, please follow me on my social media pages. You'll have seen my Instagram handle is Kate Rankin Photography. I also have a fine art newborn page called Slumberlings, and my personal page is Kate Nicole Kearney. I would love to hear from you guys. I would love to answer your questions. I see so many have come through, and my apologies. I wish there was a way that I could answer the questions and go through the presentation as well. But let me answer a couple more questions just before we end off. What are the best settings to have your camera on in your settings? Lindy, are you referring to a professional camera or a cell phone camera? I'm not quite sure. Taylor, as a personal question, would you say that a mirrorless camera behaves the same as an iPhone but a professional camera? Taylor, I have a mirrorless camera that I use for sort of family holidays. To be honest, I keep forgetting to charge it. I then whip out my iPhone. In terms of professional cameras, the world is going mirrorless. So if you guys do want to, get into the professional world of photography, I would look at a mirrorless, absolutely. But your iPhone is superb for day-to-day shots, for travel photos, for times when you don't want to lug a huge SLR camera around. And that's it. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you heard me. I hope it wasn't too distracting with your kids and your dogs and everyone running around. Nikki says Lightroom is free. Thanks for confirming, Nikki. I thought it was. I know the one for the Creative Cloud for the Adobe Suite is paid for, but Lightroom, the app, is free. It's brilliant, guys. Go give it a shot. You can create and save presets. It's amazing to edit your photos on. And Nikki, please repeat your contact details for social media followers. You'll see it on the slides, and you can see it here. My Facebook and my Instagram is Kate Rankin Photography. My personal is Kate Nicole Kearney, but please feel free to pop me a message if you have any more questions about that. Corley says, very close-up photo tips, please. A steady arm, and also trust what your screen is telling you. The camera on an iPhone is superb because it'll tell you if it's not focused or not. So my suggestion is, with those water droplets, bring your phone as close to the subject as possible, but don't let it go out of focus, and then rather crop it in to make it look like you've zoomed in more as opposed to get a blurry close-up photo. I hope I explained that. I hope I explained the goal. Ruth says, which Lightroom app do you use? I use Lightroom. It's called Lightroom. Georgina, are the editing features on the iPhone not good enough for editing? They're great. Like I said, they're perfect for doing the sort of cropping, enhancing contrast, adding warmth, adding clarity, straightening it out, etc. But those other apps I just mentioned are for sort of more editing if you want to apply sort of more specific edits to your photos. Alan, is Lightroom Adobe? Yes, Lightroom belongs to the Adobe Creative Suite. On your phone it's for free, but if you are editing on your desktop, you do need to buy it. It's about $10 a month. Erin says, is it worthwhile trying to take low light pics on earlier iPhones 5, 6, 7, or 10? Yes, Erin. Up until a couple of weeks ago, I was using the iPhone 10, and before that the 6. And absolutely, just have a steady hand. And like I said, rather take in low lights at night as opposed to use your flash and edit afterwards, and just appreciate the grain and the character the grain adds to the photo. Anonymous says, where would there be a good place to get lights, like in the morning or when? So golden hour is your best time of day to shoot. There's an app that even tells you what time it is, but if you're awake, you know sort of what time sunrise is. Golden hour is within an hour of sunrise. It's when the sun isn't too harsh in the sky, and when it's more golden and it's lying low, and it gives beautiful soft light, like a diffused light. So that happens really, really early in the morning and really late in the afternoon. So go out this afternoon. Please send some photos of some golden hour. And all the photos you take and edit, please do send them to me and share them with me and tag me. I'd love to see what you've learned. On an iPhone, can you change the quality of shooting like a normal camera? That's from Maurice. Maurice, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Do you mean change like shutter speed or ISO, or if you can just clarify on that question, please. But I think, yes, Photoshop Express is also good for editing. Photoshop is part of the Adobe suite. I'm just a Lightroom phone, but absolutely, guys, there's so many apps out there. Don't let me dictate to you what's great and what's not. Sarah says, I know I'm out of time, but please let us know about blurring a background if you haven't used portrait mode. Okay, Sarah, so in Lightroom on your computer, you can add a blur brush. I believe there is an app for editing a blurry background. I don't have the name. My friend Robin Davey did a talk a couple of weeks back, and she did give the name. I will find out from her what it's called, because it sounded very cool. I'd never heard of it, because I normally just do it post-production, or I embrace the background. If you're taking a photo with table mountain in the background, you want it to be in focus. So I'm actually not sure what that app is called, but I'll find it for you. Sorry, guys, just scrolling through questions. Somebody says Affinity Photo is also cool for Photoshop. Thanks, Taylor. Anushka, when is it a good idea to use portrait mode on the phone? Thank you for that question. I forgot to mention it earlier. Use it when your subject is still and when there's only one subject. So if you are using portrait mode and you have a group of 3 2-year-olds together, you are not going to get it, because somebody is going to move. They're all going to move, and your photo is just not going to be great. Rather take a normal standard cell phone, iPhone photo of the small kids. If your subject can stand still, if it's an older child, if it's a sleeping dog, if it's a stationary item or stationary subject, then definitely use portrait mode. Jason, thank you. The app for blurring out the background was called Focos. It's Focos. That's right. Thanks, Jason. I forgot the name of it. Guys, thank you very much. Another Brian says blur background is another one for blurring out photos. Andre, there are different Lightroom apps. Which is the right one? Suppose I can show you now, because I'm out of my presentation. But if you look here, it's that blue. It's that one there. So that's the Lightroom app. It's got an L, an uppercase L, and a lowercase r on a navy blue background with a turquoise border. That's the Lightroom app that you should be looking for. A lot of Lightroom questions coming through. Unfortunately, I can't get into the specifics right now, because it is quite a thing to get in and learn all about it. Guys, thank you so much, everyone. Remember to take a photo for your chance to win a 5,000 Rand iStore voucher. Take a selfie now. Make me look good. Please tag me in your posts. Let me know how your photo is going. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. It's been such a treat. Good luck with the rest of lockdown. And hopefully I will see some of your beautiful family photography on iPhone work coming out soon. Have a lovely weekend, guys. Thank you.